Hi, and welcome to this webinar. This is the January 2021 webinar, and the topic is how to keep yourself motivated during COVID-19 and this global pandemic, and just in general, really, how to keep yourself motivated in times that can feel particularly tough. So I have a lot to say about this, and I've got my notes here so that I don't forget anything. And I'm going to be outlining some optional activities and introspections and reflections as we go through this webinar. So I've created a worksheet for you, which is just below. You can just click on it and download it and print it, or you can just take a look at it. And yeah, you're welcome to grab a journal and a pen and do it that way, or use the worksheet, whatever works for you. But there will be opportunities for you to reflect along with me. So with that in mind, I have 6 different steps to take, similar to the December webinar, which if you haven't checked out was all about how to manifest the 2021 of your dreams. Similar to that, I've got 6 steps for motivation that I find really have helped me and continue to help me. And so the first step, we will get right in. The first step for this webinar is to ask ourselves, what do we want to have more motivation to do? What is it that we want to have more motivation to do? And I'll give you a minute to think about that, and you're also welcome to pause the video at any point. But for the purposes of this webinar, I really encourage you to have one area of your life in mind. And it need not be career related. It could be you want more motivation to love yourself, or you want more motivation to get healthier, or to find a relationship of some kind. It could really be anything. So just allow yourself a moment to really get curious with that question. And if you have an answer, we'll move on to the second step. Once we have that in our awareness, the second step is to say, okay, how has my motivation for doing that thing and achieving that particular goal, how has it been affected by COVID-19 or recent events? Maybe for you, the thing that's impacting you is not COVID-19. Maybe you're watching this in the future and COVID-19 is a distant memory. How has your motivation been impacted by those recent events? And you'll see, if you're looking and using the worksheet, that I've got spaces in 2 different columns. And the reason for that is, what I would like us and I invite us to do as we go through this section is make a assessment or a judgment on whether that impact is helping take you closer to your goal or taking you further away from your goal. So maybe just thinking about one impact that you've experienced. And I'll give you some examples. For COVID-19, many of us have found ourselves working from home. Maybe that is actually something that's taking you closer to a goal that you have. Maybe your goal is to work out more, and this has been easier for you because you've been working from home. Maybe actually working from home has been not good for your workout goal because you're not doing your commute like me. I'm not doing my cycle commute anymore. So it's going to be unique for whatever your motivation, your goal is, and also for each of us individually. So pause the video again and try and come up with at least 6 different impacts. And when you have those 6, my invitation is to just make a judgment of, is this taking you closer or further away? And maybe inviting you to use a little arrow. Closer could mean this direction and further away could be the other direction. And just make an assessment on, okay, how many impacts am I aware of that are taking me closer to my goal, and how many am I aware of that are taking me away from my goal? And if you find that you only have one type, you only have impacts that are taking you closer or impacts that are taking you further away, it can be a really useful time to just ask yourself, okay, what else might be there on the flip side? What else might be there that I haven't seen yet that is having an impact on me? And what we're doing here is allowing our brains to potentially see things from a different perspective. When it comes to something like COVID, I think we'll all agree we've heard a lot of messages, a lot of fear, and, quite rightly so, it's been a really difficult time. And some of those messages can very firmly become beliefs within us that we don't realize. So a message that might become a belief might be, it's really hard to make money during COVID-19, or it's really hard to start a business, or everyone's so lonely. Now, those things may or may not be true. And if we've heard something enough times and it's become a belief, it can start feeling true for us, even if there's evidence or opportunity to take it in a different direction. And so what we're really doing here is there's no right or wrong, but it's just opening up that possibility of perspective to really allow us to see a 360-degree view of what could be true or what could be possible. Now we have our goal, what we want to be more motivated to do. We have our list of impacts. We've made an assessment. Is it taking us closer or further away? If we have things on there that are taking us further away from our goal, just taking a moment to really feel into them, because some of these might be particularly heavy, especially when it comes to COVID. Maybe we're lacking motivation because our mental health has been suffering. Maybe we are lonely. Maybe we're struggling not being able to see family and friends, and that's getting in the way of our motivation to run a marathon. And those things are real. And the purpose of this is not to push any of that away, but actually to open up to embrace it and to say, yeah, this part of this has been really challenging for me in meeting my goal. And just noticing any emotions that are there around that, and maybe anything that needs to be expressed or released. So moving into the third step, my question for you is, if your motivation was a finite scale where 0 was the least motivated you've ever been and 10 is the most motivated you could ever be. So 0 is like zero motivation, flat line, nothing, nada. And 10 is like, I imagine, Tony Robbins, the most motivated I could imagine, get up every morning at 4 a.m., go for a run if that's my motivation, is to work out more, whatever. So I think of the Tony Robbins of motivation. Where are you now? Where are you now out of 10 in terms of motivation? And just breathing into that and just asking yourself that question. Okay, where am I? Maybe I'm a 5. I'm sort of still motivated a bit, but I'm struggling to get up into a higher number. Maybe it's a 9 and you're so motivated, so motivated to do this thing. Or maybe you're a 1 or a 2 and the motivation to do this thing has just gone. You still want to do it, but the motivation to take action is really low. And just, again, accepting where we are and just noticing, okay, this is where I am right now. I'm a 2, or I'm a 3, or I'm a 9. And then really asking yourself, what is the experience like to be that number? And it can be helpful to close your eyes for this piece. Just asking yourself, what is it like to be a 4? Perhaps there's a heaviness or a lightness, a slowness or a feeling of fast-pacedness. Maybe it's hot, or maybe it feels cool. Maybe it feels warm and cozy, or maybe it feels lonely. Just noticing what the experience is like to be that number. And then the question is, if you were to add 1 to whatever your number was, what would that experience be like? How would it change? So if you were a 4, now you'll be, what would it be like to be a 5? And again, closing your eyes can be really useful. Allowing yourself to tap into that. What would my thoughts be like? What would be different about how I feel, how I speak, how I think, if my motivation was 1 point higher? Okay, so now we've explored, what the goal is that you're looking to increase your motivation around, what the impacts have been on achieving that goal, both maybe positive, maybe more negative, maybe some in between, and then what number are you in terms of your motivation out of 10 currently? What is it like to be at that number? And what would it be like if you were to be able to increase it? So the next step, step 4, is getting underneath the goal itself to your why factor. And the why factor to me is really, what is it about that specific goal that is important to you as an individual? So if it's working out, as an example, 2 different people could have the goal to work out. One person, the why factor might be to look amazing for their upcoming wedding day. For the other person, the why factor might be to get their blood pressure down so that they can, feel healthier and feel better about their long-term health prospects. So the same goal can have a different why factor. And it's really that question of, why is this important to you? Like, what is it about this goal that really has got you doing this webinar and got you really thinking about this? So I'll give you an example here. So one of my goals this year is to increase the revenue from my coaching business. And, it sounds like a very straightforward goal as a professional coach. However, my why factor is really specific, and it is that I want to be able to make enough money that I can fly my mum and my sister business class out to see me when they come out to see me when COVID is over, because I haven't seen them for 18 months and I'm desperate to see them, and I'm getting married next year. And yeah, it's really important to me. I would love to have them come out at the end of this year, depending on what happens, and be able to make that long trip really comfortable for them. And so that's my why factor. And you can see that could be completely different for 10 different coaches, but that's really what drives me. And this why factor is what is going to be really useful for us to dig into in moments when things get hard, when maybe we're coming up against a brick wall in terms of our goal, because there will always be obstacles. No one's ever achieved anything really juicy and big without there being obstacles. But our why factor can really help us to dig in and take that small next action step to stay consistent and stay on track and just stay in momentum rather than getting into a place of stagnancy. So the why factor for you, write it down if you've got a pen and paper, or maybe it's a couple of things, or use the worksheet. And when you're ready, we'll go on to the next step. And so this is actually 4B. So step 4B is related to that why. We want to create a visual reminder of your why factor, just in case you forget in a week or a month. And we need a little reminder. And it's so great to have this in a place that you're going to see it, especially when you're probably working towards your goal. So if it's, you in that wedding dress, for me anyway, it's a picture where you work out, or a picture in your bathroom, or wherever the place is that you think is going to really help you with that goal. For me, it would be in my office, where I'm going to be working long hours to get this thing done and to, build this business. And work really hard. And so that would be right here, right in front of me now. A picture of my mum and my sister, and maybe like a little aeroplane or a fake business class ticket. So having a visual reminder in a place that's going to be accessible for you in those darkest of moments is number 4B. So moving on, the next step. So we've identified our goal. We've explored what it's like to be at a certain number and what the impacts were of COVID and of recent events. We've analyzed and assessed our why factor and created a visual reminder for it. The next step is to ask ourselves, what are the leading indicators for my goal? And I'll explain what I mean by this. So if my goal is to double my revenue from my coaching business, there will be a number of leading indicators that will tell me that I'm on the right path. Same with a workout. If my goal is to get fit or to, let's say my goal is to get in the best shape of my life. What leading indicators could tell me that I'm on the right track? I would say number of workouts a week would be a good one. I would say length of the, number of minutes worked out a week or number of calories burned, depending on, your thoughts on all of that stuff. I really don't know much about working out. I should have probably said that. For me, obviously revenue is a big one, but even leading revenue would be number of client calls booked, number of subscribers in my online platform, number of discovery calls that I'm having with new clients. So you can see there are leading indicators that are taking us closer and closer to that goal. And we want our leading indicators to be such that if you ticked off all the leading indicators and you increased your number of discovery calls, increased the number of clients, and increased the number of subscribers, it's taking you closer and closer to that goal. So it's an inevitability that you will at some point achieve it. And so that's a leading indicator. So it's a moment now to just assess, what could your leading indicators be for your goal? What would the leading indicators be, the metrics or the measures that you could actually say, yep, I'm doing that, yep, I'm doing that, things that you know will make your goal inevitable, that you'll reach it, or at least be a very strong indicator that you'll reach it. And then we're on to the final step, step 6. So the final step then is, once you have your leading indicators, the final step is to ask yourself, what are 3 things I can do this week that will take me in the direction of moving those leading indicators? So if the goal is to do 5 workouts a week, what are 3 actions I can take to make that happen? One action might be carving out time in my calendar to do the workouts. One action might be enlisting a personal trainer. Another action might be asking a friend to be an accountability buddy. I'm just making these up. So every single week, coming up with 3 actions that will take you closer to your leading indicators. And this can be really helpful because sometimes when we have a big, lofty goal, it can be really hard to say, well, how on earth am I going to double my revenue this year? And so the leading indicators are really going to help us see, okay, well, what's the step I need to take? What measure or what do I need to shift in order for that to happen? And then the 3 actions are just making it so action oriented and within our control, because so many things are going to be outside of our control. But what we can control are our own actions. And the reason why I like to do it weekly is because things change and evolve over time. And so asking ourselves this question again weekly and really reviewing those leading indicators and saying, okay, what did I learn last week? And what can I shift up this week or keep doing this week? And what should those 3 actions be? A bonus step, because I thought of something else that was really important after I decided it would be 6. A bonus step would be to reward yourself every week when you achieve your 3 things. And I think this can be so important when we're after a big goal, because the reward can sometimes feel so far away. And the reward can be really small, but it's important for the purposes of habits for us to reward ourselves and have that serotonin release of enjoyment when we do things that we want our brain to say, yes, I did that thing and I got a reward. I want to do that again. Because if we're just flogging ourselves away, working, still that goal seems really far away without any sense of reward, it can be really hard for us to keep that consistency and keep that resiliency up. And when it comes to doing your action steps each week, it can be really useful to go back to that step of imagining, okay, and assessing, what is my motivation right now? What would it be like to plus one to that number? What would I feel like? What would I think like? What if I plussed another one? What would it be like if I was a 10 out of 10 for motivation? How would I respond? How would I live this day? And sometimes just allowing, again, that expansiveness to open up, there will be learnings there and possibilities there, and just more opportunity for us to grow as individuals. So that was my bonus step. So here we have the 6 steps, and you've got the worksheet there. Step 1, really get real about your goal. Write it down on the worksheet. Tell someone, identify your goal. Step 2, just make an assessment. How has my goal been impacted, especially by COVID-19? And what are the impacts in terms of, are they taking me closer? Are they taking me further away? Is it a mix? Just exploring, are there other impacts there? Then we are making that assessment. Well, where am I? Am I a 1 out of 10, a 10 out of 10 for motivation? What is that experience like? What would it be like to plus one? What would it be like to plus another one? And just doing that exploration before you even start working. Very importantly, asking yourself, what's my why factor? Maybe it changes over time, and that's okay. But just checking in, especially if you're feeling a lull in motivation, what is my why factor for this goal? And don't forget the visual reminder for the why factor, because that can be so important in those moments where we really need a boost of resiliency. The next step, what are your leading indicators? So what are the metrics and the measures that are going to show you that you're on the right track for your goal? And then the final step, step 6, what are 3 actions you can take that are going to take you closer to those leading indicators and thus closer to your goal? And the bonus, make sure you reward yourself every week when you meet those 3 actions. So I really hope that this has been useful in some way. Would love to hear what your goals are, because as we know, if we speak our goals out loud or tell another person, they are so much more likely to happen. We're also priming our brain to know that this is important to us, and there we're going to be looking for those opportunities there for actually making that goal happen. I would absolutely love to work with you more. If you're interested in joining my online program, you'll find more details at mindfullylaura.com. I really have a huge passion for making this work available to absolutely everyone. And so for $19.99 a month, you'll have access to all of my coaching programs, as well as access to me as a coach through weekly voice note service and all the webinars and daily practices and all of that good stuff. So head over to mindfullylaura.com if you're interested. And I also have not many, maybe 1 or 2 private coaching spots for the coming months. So this is in January 2021. But you'll find, whenever you watch this, you'll find all the details on my website and a form for where you can apply if you would also like to go down that route too. Lovely to be here with you, and best of luck for 2021. I know that you have everything you need to make this a really amazing year, and thank you so much for being here. Bye.